What? Are you sure you know Windows well? Listen, I thought I did, and I screwed up so bad when I started working in tech it's embarrassing. Don't assume anything. Let me tell you what happened. I was working in a help desk and I got a ticket that asked me to go to a thing called a kiosk, and it was running Windows, so I knew that. Log in as a local user and verify that something was running. It took me 45 minutes. I was standing there, nervously shifting my weight back and forth in a crowded hospital hallway, praying I could figure it out. I kept thinking, this sucks. Does everyone go through this? So here we are. I'm gonna show you the 3 basic things I didn't know that would have helped tremendously. So number 1, local users. In Windows, we all have usernames. These are our identities. Each of these identities are unique, very unique. They're associated with a security identifier, or SID, which is a long string of characters. When a user opens a file, Windows generates an access token using the SID. This is used by Windows to authenticate and authorize the user. Now here's the key point. In my kiosk example, I didn't realize that there are 2 types of users, local users and domain users. I was trying to log into the kiosk with the local credentials, which is good, but I didn't know there was a special trick to log in. To fix this, I had to preface the username with a dot and a backslash, which tells Windows, hey, this is a local user, don't use domain authentication. Number 2, the file system. While I didn't struggle as much with the file system when I was new in tech, I didn't understand it either. I knew where my stuff was, but I didn't really know where the other user's stuff was or why everything looked the same. When you truly understand the file system, it's like having a map with you all the time. It's much harder to get lost. Starting with the basics, you should know where user directories are located. After this, knowing where program-related files are kept is super helpful. Starting with program files and program files x86, which is, when you install software, this is where most of the software is copied. That's why when you click into these folders, you'll see program names or vendor names. An important note here is that the permissions on these folders are pretty locked down. Yeah, you can change it, but just don't, ever. It's a bad idea. Moving on to program data. This is used by installed applications when they need to store and later access data. The difference between program data and program files is in the permissions. Program data has permissions that allow more actions. They are more permissive. Did you know you can open Windows Explorer? And in the path bar at the top, you can use variables to jump to a different location in the system. For example, to jump to the currently logged in user's directory, you can type this and hit enter. These variables can be used in many other ways as well. Finally, know that there are 2 options that I enable that shows me 1, the full file name, including the extension, so you can see what type of file it is, and 2, hidden directories. These are located in the View menu, under File Name Extensions, and then under Hidden Items. Number 3, the big one, Events. At this point, I had seen the event viewer, but I didn't understand it. There are obvious parts of it, like the summary of events in the middle, but to use the other features, you must understand its layout. So when I was shown by a colleague that the thing I was checking on that kiosk was creating events that showed me it had stopped and it had started on its own, I was pretty impressed, saved me a lot of work. I realized there is a lot of potential in this feature. So what is it? The Windows Event Log is a detailed record of system, security, and application logs. If you don't know what these events look like, open up Event Viewer right now to view thousands of examples. These events are like a trail of breadcrumbs. Even careful attackers or sneaky malware are going to have a hard time evading the Windows event logging system. Here are some highlights that are important to remember. Windows is infamous for being a noisy operating system. It produces a lot of events, all of the time, around 10x more than Linux from my experience. Each Windows event will contain the same set of fields, but they don't always have the fields populated, and that's normal. These fields are date, time, user, computer, which is the host name where the event was created, event ID, source, and type. Events are stored as .evtx files under here. Attackers know this and can cover their tracks by removing logs. Of course, this will create a gap in the timeline for logging, but if you don't know to look for the gap, you may never notice it. Finally, it's important to realize that on Windows servers, some app logs are stored outside of the event viewer. They have their own logging location and format. An example of this is Windows IIS, which is Internet Information Service. This is the feature that makes a Windows server into a web host. It logs to multiple places depending on what you're looking for. PowerShell is a cross-platform task automation solution made up of a command line shell, a scripting language, and a configuration management framework. PowerShell runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. The most important part of all of this is you can use PowerShell to interact with remote Windows computers because it's already installed on it. Now some of you may be asking, why didn't the team that assigned the ticket to me just run some PowerShell script remotely and check if that service was running? Why did they have to send Chris the idiot down there? In this case, the idiot Chris was the only way to get the information because the kiosk was isolated from everything. But the other side of this is, I was the first one in the help desk to raise my hand and accept the task. Because I'm always looking to add new skills, I have always been the first to raise my hand for new or difficult tasks. This is quite possibly the most important thing that I learned early in my tech career. Get out of your comfort zone and accept that failure is normal. There are often zero consequences for failing in tech because you will have another chance literally seconds or at worst minutes later. As long as you learn from your mistakes, you will be just fine. And if you want to continue building your new skills, then this video is exactly what you're looking for.